Welcome to Science Curriculum Night. My name is Mr. Kramschuster, and if you're watching this, your daughter is either in my Biblical Traditions class, which is the required class for juniors, or in my philosophy class, which is an elective course for juniors and seniors. I'm originally from Mora, Minnesota. As you can see, it was 150 years ago primarily a Scandinavian community. And so if you listen to a roll call, you would have heard Anderson, Erickson, Nelson, Swenson, Kramschuster. My name didn't necessarily fit in perfectly, but I went to public school. It was a small town. We didn't have any private schools there. My dad was from a German Catholic community in Wisconsin, and my mom grew up in Mora, Minnesota. So I had four brothers and sisters that lived through different parts in the country. And so I ended up, after high school, going to St. John's University. It's in Stearns County, Minnesota, and 150 years ago, Stearns County was 98% Catholic and 98% German. So the Benedictine monks from Metten, Bavaria, ended up coming to Stearns County, Minnesota to minister to the German population that was there. You also see the names, Gottfried Diekmann, Dietrich Reinhardt. My last name fit in a little bit better there. But I majored in humanities with an emphasis in the classical period. So instead of just studying art, history, or literature, you study the art, history, literature, philosophy of the classical period. And for me, that was ancient Greece. But theology sort of manifested itself as my primary area of interest. And so I went on and did a master's degree in theology with an emphasis in Scripture. And what we did there is, instead of just reading the Bible, what they wanted you to do is read the Bible in the original language. So I had already had Greek from my undergraduate, so I started to study Hebrew. You would also start to look at the historical context. What is happening at the time in which the Scripture was written? You would also study something called hermeneutics, which is just a fancy word for like a theory of interpretation. What is the appropriate way to study ancient texts that have a fundamentally different worldview than the 21st century American worldview? So you'd study the economic system of first century Palestine, the history, etc. And then after you study those things, they give you the biblical text, and they say, here, read this. And what just amazed me is that I found out that the Bible is not just about being good and going to church on Sunday. It is an incredibly powerful stories that are trying to reshape our world, to image it as God's intention for creation. And so they're trying to build, in the terms of Zion, a world of peace, justice, and love. And so I decided I was accepted to go off, and I was planning to go off to PhD land. I was accepted in a program, but then I decided to try to find people who are living out that gospel message as opposed to, merely studying it, which led me to the Catholic worker movement. I tried out Catholic workers in D.C. and Chicago, but I found my home at the Catholic worker community in Kansas City. So the Catholic worker community, you can ask your daughters about this. They learned about it in their sophomore year. But it was started by Dorothy Day, and it is what they call a school of radical Christianity. It is putting, the Catholic values into practice in everyday life. So we had a soup kitchen and a homeless shelter here, and to me, the gospel just came alive here. And I ended up meeting my wife at the Catholic worker movement. If she tells the story at a cocktail party, she'll tell you that, she was volunteering there, and as if she picked me up as if I was going through the soup line. But we have, that's not how it happened, but we have 3 daughters. My oldest daughter is married to Jake, and 2 dogs at home, Martin and Josie. And I know what some of you are thinking right now, wow, all girls at home, all girls at school. What a lucky man. So, biblical traditions. I have been teaching this course for 15 years. I am excited to teach it every single year. And I take both of those aspects, the academic part that I learned to study Scripture, to put things into their historical context, and to try to find out what that story meant for the people at that time. But then I take what I learned from Holy Family House, and you have to take the meaning. This isn't merely a history class, but you want to take what you've learned and apply it to our 21st century American lifestyles, like I learned at the Catholic Worker Movement. Philosophy, I learn from your daughters every day. I learn from continuing to study this. And so what we're doing in this class is our book called The Big Questions. It doesn't focus on a history of philosophy, but introducing these big questions and then getting their preliminary or their first answers to a lot of these questions and sort of exploring that. And hopefully, by the end of the course, in addition to reading some original works of philosophy, exploring their own thoughts about this stuff, we can see how these philosophical questions enlarge our conception of what is possible and enrich our intellectual imagination. The way that I teach both of these classes is there's a variety of teaching methods and a variety of assessments. We do have quizzes and tests about Scripture, but the primary focus for assessment will also be a Psalm video project, a modern RAPEC presentation that they do, an Enneagram project in philosophy, and those are the topics that are covered. I am super excited for this year. Of course, if you have any questions or comments and you want to get a hold of me on campus, you'll see my email address, and the phone number is the school's number, and they'll connect you to my voicemail box. Look forward to perhaps meeting you, and I hope you all have a good year. Have a good evening.